And live.
We got a live buy from Greg right now.
Are we live buying right now?
Yeah. He's buying Nam Estate.
This is going to be, we're going to have a lot of mining in this because it's PDAC. It's been a really great convention, but just 2 minutes ago. You just bought it?
Just bought it.
Live buy, folks. We had a live buy. What'd you buy?
62.
62.
Did you hit a market?
Pardon me?
Was that a market?
Yes.
Ooh, very nice.
I played a dangerous game there.
So while we're on the show, and he's not going to really be able to watch this for too much because we're going to be doing a live show, but he just bought Namaste because he's betting on the bounce because they just unhalted.
Well, I still had a lot of shares at 24 cents as well, so.
Just rub it in our faces.
Why you gotta be that guy, bro?
No, that's awesome. I like that. God. So yeah, no, we got a bunch of people on the show today. Let's go to Namaste in just a second.
You're buying when blood's in the streets, are you?
That's it.
Even if the blood is
when it was my first 15 bagger.
Let's see. We'll review this at the end of the show and see if you made a good purchase.
Oh boy.
All right. So on the show today, we've got ourselves, Greg, Karl, Brandon. We're going to have Granite Creek Copper coming in. We have Tim Johnson, President and CEO. We've got Michael Rowley of Group 10 Metals is on that interview as well. We've got the Global UAV Technologies. We've got a cool story about him. We'll say closer to that interview. Michael Burns.
Full circle on that one,
Full circle, my first interview, yeah. And then Greg Johnson, CEO of Metallic Minerals, is coming on. And specifically in that interview, he's talking about the cycle that we're in right now, where this is the lowest it's been since the 1970 of commodities versus equities, a ratio of that. So you take the commodities and you divide it by the S&P 500. And right now we're in a trough, and this is the lowest it's been since the 70s.
So is this kind of like a fear bot where you can...
Very similar. It's not necessarily a fear bot, it's more so it's an indication of past data and past events, and it goes back decades. Yeah. This is real data, and he's not saying it's about to turn, but he is saying this is looking like a trough. These only come once every 10 years or so.
I've made 5% of my money.
I see.
Did you already make 5%? All right, we're done with that. Let's go back to Namaste really quickly, though. We're going to get back to that. Namaste. Why are you buying?
What is it at 70 right now? 68.
68. So we'll see what happens.
Why did I buy
so far?
Yeah.
It's a nice just playing a trader's game here.
A trader's game.
Plus, I do believe in them. Like, I mean, there's this guy we know. His name is Todd.
Toddy Tickles.
Toddy Tickles.
I don't know if anyone's ever called him that before.
Yeah.
It's new.
Anyone that knows or listened to, what's that show, On the Edge?
Dean Blundell?
Dean Blundell, they would know.
What happened?
What's happening?
What happened? Yeah, no, that's...
I like when they call in and you're from Oshawa, and they're like, we have a winner.
And pretty much everyone who does not live in Toronto is wondering, what the hell are these guys talking about?
That's classic stuff there, right there.
But yeah, no, Namaste halted because they did not file financials. Is that their official reason?
Something like that, yeah.
No, I think didn't the auditor...
The auditor resigned as well.
That's a big issue, man.
Well, I mean, it's just the issues with Sean Dollinger, like suing them and then all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's just been...
Yeah, we met Sean here once.
Yep.
Had him on a few times.
Yeah, and I think, if memory serves correctly, I think he dropped that lawsuit because now he's an advisor for the company. I could be wrong. Forgive me if I am.
You're right.
Is that right? Yeah. And then, yeah, their advisory committee or whatever that was, their legal counsel, basically.
Don't know what's going on there, but it's...
I think, back to mining, I think when mining pops, it's gonna be a significant move because, as you guys would notice, at PDAC, there was a lot of talk about cannabis because a lot of the speculators moved some money or started building companies, cannabis companies, but a lot of wealth has been created, and people that still understand and know that sector, and they know how fast it can move. So when those moves happen, there's just more money in the system to buy.
Yeah.
It's not advice, it's just my opinion.
And it was really interesting. We had, shout out to Sean Kingsley, who came on to our podcast yesterday after the convention. And he was saying, you know, you look at PDAC, there's a lot of smart money there, but not as many retail investors. And he actually took that as a good sign because he likes that, because that still shows there's a lot of accumulation that can be had. Because when it comes to mining, we're so used to RNX and Sokimon and gold, and we had these crazy spikes, and sometimes those are followed by crazy dips afterwards. There's a lot of traders got into that. When it comes to mining, I think it's a real investment. If you can find a good company, these are ones you hold for a while, because we are at the bottom of a cycle. When will we start going to the top? I don't have that answer. but I'm much more confident buying here than I am at the top, and all the indicators are saying it's getting frothy, and you got to watch out.
That's why I like the private placements with like MMG and Group 10 and stuff like that. You know, I can put my money into that and know that I don't need it right now, and down the road, you know they're going to do well.
Yep, and MMG is Metallic Minerals. They are our client at FTMIG.com, and actually on the show today, talk a little bit about this company and about mining in general. So just full disclosure there as well.
You know, everybody that we met at PDAC, they'd ask us questions. Who are some of your clients? And we bring up Metallic. They were like, "Oh yeah, we know them. Great people. Solid management."
Yeah,
it is what it is, folks.
Greg
you talk
and
to
his
that many
team,
people and you hear the same comment, it means something.
Especially in mining. You know, we walk around, and how many times you're listening to somebody. Karl had a story of one of the companies, a nickel company he was looking into and talking to at the show, and they basically said,
"Nothing exciting going on here." I'm not even kidding.
So
I'm not even kidding you. I asked a couple questions. It was early on in their program, and I was searching. I was trying to pull something out of them that would excite me because I like nickel, and I realized they had nothing. So I just asked. I'm like, "Well, is there anything exciting going on here?" And the person's like, "No." I'm like, "All right. Thanks for being honest."
Yeah. And it's funny because, you know, you talk to, like, for anyone who hasn't been to PDAC, it actually is a really interesting event. It's the largest in the world. There's some 35,000 people come through, and there's a lot of companies there, and you can pretty quickly tell who's just trying to spin you a story and who actually might, like, is passionate about this, might actually have something.
Another thing that I like about the Metallic Group, and we were talking about this yesterday, is their approach. You know, they have a different approach. They're very honest. They're very real about their expectations. They're managing them very well. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Whereas they could have been out there hitting the road promoting really hard, but they realize that this is more of a long-term strategy, which other people, you know, admit to that, but the way they talk is very promotional, right?
Yeah, so. Yeah, and you'll see it in the interview. I'd say 45% of it with Greg was educational, and we'll hopefully get some more stuff coming from him as well. But yeah, no, I'm really starting to get some of my money into mining in general, just because I do see these economic indicators, and unlike cannabis, which we always talk about because it's a hot sector right now, there's not much past results for cannabis, so it's really hard to predict things, which makes it that much more speculative. But with mining and with other stocks, they're cyclical.
Well,
there's facts.
Yeah, even on to your point about you know, history in cannabis, there had been trends in cannabis, but it's kind of bucking that trend right now. Like usually in January, February, you know, you'd sort of start to have a sell-off of a top of a cycle, and then it would go sideways for a bit, and then summer would be consolidation. Whereas last year we broke out of that. Canopy had that big news with the $5 billion investment from Constellation, mm-hmm. and that, you know, it ignited the market. Yep. So that bucked the trend. So I don't know what's going on with cannabis anymore, other than some of these companies are just ripping. Like Agra made some good money there. I'm not in it anymore. That's been such a ride for some people.
Absolutely. Agra has...
Now I'm eyeing up Test.
Test is starting to go a little bit as well. I personally own that myself. Labs, I do not own that one right now, but Labs, MetaPharm, they've had an incredible run over the last couple of weeks.
I do own Test, FYI.
For extraction companies. And yeah, I think you're right, because up until this, there was the only thing we had was speculation. So every single time we went through these troughs, it's because we got new news, or something happened, an event happened, and we sold afterwards, because they kept putting all that news in April for 420, when all the news there. The difference this year is that we don't have to worry about is it going to be legal? Is Bill C-45 going to pass? This is Canada we're talking about. Even in the United States, they're now, it seems like almost every single week another state comes with either medical or recreational. There's a lot more certainty now.
There was that thing about the FDA, one of their members, he resigned, and people were really worried about what's going to happen with CBD and when that's going to be going in. So wish I had that.
I can almost promise you it's going to be corrupt, and it's not going to go the way we want it to. Because that's how politics works, folks.
You made a great buy. 71 cents, dude.
71.
Yeah.
There we go. Oh yeah, I forgot to watch it.
Dennis Lynch, do you have any info on FSD, meaning FSD Pharma, when their license might be coming, and if you're following them? To be very honest, I'm going to speak personally, I am not following them. There's enough that has happened and transpired with that company and their facility that, you know, they got a long road to go. And I never have bought them, and
do you like them, Brandon?
I think there are other places that'll probably be better to put your money, but I've been wrong before, I could be wrong again.
You don't have to be political here.
No, I'm being political.
So you don't like them?
I don't own them. If I don't own them, do I love them?
Do you like them?
I don't like them as a stock choice, no. Yeah. And remember, you did this to me 3 weeks ago or so, 4 weeks ago, and then Greg answered, I answered, and then we went back to you and you didn't answer. So just remember, at some point during this show, I'm probably the same, and you better answer. Or else,
I'll answer.
Everyone who's watching will know.
I'll show you the best Dodge pickup you've ever seen.
Okay, on that note, head over to our first interview, and we have Granite Creek Copper coming up first. Tim Johnson, this is the newest. There's Metallic Group. It's 3 different companies. They share the know-how of management team, but also have their separate management team. This is one of the 3, and this is the newest addition to them. It's a copper play, and Tim Johnson is the CEO, and we'll go there to see what he had to say about his company. We're joined in studio today with Tim Johnson and Michael Rowley. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
A pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. And today we're focusing on Granite Creek Copper, which is a play that went public very shortly ago. And this is a discovery mode. We're finding out who the company is and who is Tim Johnson, the man behind the scenes.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so Granite Creek Copper is the 3rd company in the Metallic group of companies. And it follows the same philosophy. So the Metallic Group's philosophy is to acquire brownfields projects. So that's projects that are near either an active mine or a mine that's close to going into production. It's the sort of ground position that if a major owned the mine, they would be exploring around their mine, looking for new mill feed, basically. So all 3 companies, Metallic Minerals, Group 10 Metals, and now Granite Creek Copper, have all acquired those large land positions. And we feel that's one way to de-risk because we know the geology is going to work for us because it's in known areas, and we're close to operating mines. So that also gives us a much lower level of a bar for success. Because if we build out an inferred resource as opposed to a measured or indicated resource, we'll have a ready built-in buyer for that resource, and either to buy the company or to buy the resource itself. Yeah. As opposed to a lot of juniors who are looking at a much higher benchmark where they're going to have to take a project all the way to a feasibility study stage. We don't have to go that far to have success.
Yeah. So, great to hear.
Yeah.
And copper is one of those metals that people are really citing the shortages that are upon us because there really are no massive mines that have been opening up in the last few years. And you know that copper is using almost everything you can think of, electronic or whether it's housing or whatever it be. So it is one of those metals that I've been watching just personally myself as an investor to see the progress of the price on copper, but also the production of copper. So it's interesting.
And the dynamics of the copper market are changing because what a lot of people don't realize is as we move to an electrified society where we're electrifying our vehicles and other things, that's a great demand on copper. I mean, the amount of copper that goes into an electric car versus a gas car is huge, right? So as we move that way, there's going to be an increasing demand on the metal, and there's no replacement for it.
Absolutely. Well, we've got your presentation behind us. Why don't we go through this really quickly so we can find out a little bit more into where you're mining and what you plan on doing in 2019?
Yeah. So the first slide here, if we can stay on that slide for just a sec. There's an important thing about that slide, even though it's the beginning of our presentation. But the important thing about it is the topography. So this is an easy place to build a mine. There's no cliffs, there's no glaciers, there's no lakes, right? And when you're looking at a project, if you can look and say, okay, we can see how a mine can be built here and what the challenges are, that's where we start.
Gotcha.
So that slide, that demonstrates that pretty well. Would be a great place to build a mine.
Very nice.
Yeah, so this speaks to the fundamentals. We've got a 111 square kilometer project. We're in a well-known copper belt. We have active mines or advanced stage projects on either side of us. So we're close to infrastructure. There's grid power close to us. There's a highway very close to us. We're in the Yukon, which is one of the best mining jurisdictions in North America. So we're very happy with the position that we have there.
Very nice. Yeah, Yukon is very, very mining friendly. Something that I've come to learn very quickly is insanely important because if the government is not behind you, you may not be drilling. So it's always good to be in those regions.
They've got a streamlined permitting process. They have a very good relationship with First Nations in the Yukon. There's a lot of mining history in the Yukon, so that helps. I mean, when you're in the communities talking about what your project If you've got people coming and wanting to hear more and know how they can help advance, that's great. As opposed to, when your community isn't told that you should not be there. That's always a bonus.
No, absolutely.
Yukon's in the top 10 actually in the latest Fraser Institute survey.
Oh wow!
For mining jurisdictions. Yeah,
I don't know
just in the last week.
Yeah, top
very
10
nice.
globally. So yeah, that's
very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
So moving on with the presentation here.
Yeah, so this really highlights our land position. We're at the yellow star there in the middle. We've got a large land position. And again, the Carmax Copper project to the south of us is an oxide-focused copper play. They've got a resource. They have a PEA that was produced in 2016. And then the Minto mine at one time was our highest grade open pit mine in the world. They've since gone underground. That mine's currently under current maintenance, but there's been a lot of interest from parties coming in looking to acquire that. So we see a bit of a consolidation play potentially in the belt with where we are and with two very advanced stage projects that it could be attractive to a major to come in and acquire everything. But before that can happen, there needs to be significant resources developed, and that's what we want to do.
Absolutely, and that's the goal of the course this next year, and then obviously moving forward. This is still a newer play, but lots of potential still here.
It's a newer play, but there has been historic work done on it. There was a lot of work done in the 80s. There was one company that controlled the entire belt at the time, so they did some drilling on the claims that we have now. They found that Minto was the easiest one to figure out. There's some complex geology that we're dealing with, so that's where they focused. And then since they let it go, it was staked privately. It's been held privately ever since. So this is the first time that this asset's been in a public company, and the first time some significant resources is going to be put towards it.
Very interesting.
It was a prospector that just did the very minimum work to keep the claims in good standing and keep moving them forward, but didn't have the resources to systematically explore the property.
Very interesting. And continuing on here as well.
Yeah, so there's we don't need to spend a whole lot of time on here. This slide just highlights that the major mining companies are active in the Yukon, and they're looking at projects as well. And I mean, there's been some consolidation in the majors with the Gold Corp might not exist anymore.
Yeah.
But that they're still going to be active there. The majors recognize it again as a great jurisdiction to work in, and with potential for some really big resources.
Very nice. And just a larger overview of
of the land package, and you can see the Klondike Highway there, very close to our project. We've got road access to the project, and along that Klondike Highway there's grid power as well. So any operations in this area will be run off grid. They won't be diesel generator.
Very nice.
So that's significant as well. That brings your cost way down. If you've got a remote mine that's running off diesel, it's environmentally not very sound, and your costs per ton are quite a bit higher.
I can only imagine. Absolutely, like having nearby roads or having electricity. Those are definitely check boxes to check off when you're looking at a property for sure.
Infrastructure, absolutely.
So this is some historic work that was done by a company called United Keno Hill Mines. They finished here in the 80s. Again, they went to focus on other areas. So they left a lot of work unfinished. What attracted us to the property was some high-grade drill holes that they had drilled. And then I think, like I said, there was complex geology, and they didn't quite figure it out. And then they moved on to some stuff that was easier to figure out. We feel was bringing some modern exploration techniques to our project, and the work that's been done on either side of us has really started to figure out that complex geology, and that's information that we can access. That's public information, so we can see the theories that other geologists have brought forward, that they figured out the belt is a continuous belt of highly prospective rocks, and once they figured out on either end, we can apply that knowledge to what we have now to advance our project.
Very nice.
Again, this is historic geochem, so soil samples that were done by that company and a few others. The land package that we have now is a bit larger than what they had. But it shows us that there is significant potential based on the geochem, the soil samples, and gives us a great starting point to follow up. One of the things we have found, however, is that when they did do soil samples, they did the target commodities, so they did copper, gold, and silver. They didn't do some of the pathfinder minerals. So sometimes when you're doing soil samples, the commodity that you're after doesn't always show up as well, but you can find other complementary minerals in the system that will show up a larger footprint. So that's some of the work that we're going to do potentially, is go back and look and see if there's other tools in our toolbox that we can use to try and figure out what's going on, trying to figure out the geology, and trying to figure out where the best drill holes will be.
Very interesting. And yeah, when it comes to drilling, I know obviously this company is it's much more recent than the other two companies in the group, Metallic Group.
Yep.
What type of drill package do you have for this year, or is this year really about planning and figuring out where to go from here for the rest of the year? Or do you already have a few spots where you're like, you know what, no, I think this might be a great spot. Let's start a small drill program here. Well,
that's a good question. So we do have, based on previous historic data, we do have drill sites we could go drill right now. However, my feeling is that a lot of junior companies drill too soon. Right? You really need to do the groundwork to make sure that when you do drill, you're going to have the highest chance of success. It would be easy just to go out and punch some holes and offset from another one and hope that you can keep advancing. But we've recently acquired a database that was private, hadn't been made public, done by the previous operators. So we've got a lot of data compilation to do to put that all together. We've got some 3D modeling to do, where we take the historic data, put it into a 3D database, and start to try and figure out what's going on beneath the surface. We've got more geochem to do. We've got more geophysics to do. So to answer your question, it's possible we'll drill this year, but I think most of this year is going to be focused on bringing up those targets to a confidence level that we feel better about, and developing more targets. Right now, we've probably got 4 places that like we could easily drill, but I think there's 6 to 8 that need more work. So when we do go to drill, I want to have that higher confidence.
Yeah, and it's a good point to bring up as well, that a lot of people sometimes they're drill, and you spent a lot of shareholder money, and then all of a sudden everything was a miss, or most of it was a miss. And you have to also understand the timeline of a company as well. You don't start a company and then within 3 months, oh my goodness, now it's all blue sky. It doesn't happen that way. It has to progress. You have to do your homework. You have to go. There's seasons to this. And I think a lot of people who are newer to mining and investing need to really know that there are different progressions that you make. I mean, Granite Creek Copper is in a different state than Group 10 Metals is, or that Metallic Minerals is, because they were started earlier, or they were started earlier, and they would be able to already go through the process that you've gone through and started a few drilling. So people need to appreciate when a company is taking the time to actually plan this out. It's probably for a good reason.
Systematic approach. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And going on with the slide as well, just to go through the rest of this presentation, I want to make sure we went through this and heard it straight from the mouth of the CEO himself, what the presentation has inside.
Sure. So this highlights the belt itself and the prospective rocks. So you see the 3 main projects, the Carmax, our project, the Stu, and then the Minto mine itself. And you can also see all the small little mining symbols are mineralized occurrences. So you can see there's a lot of them throughout the belt. There's little showings that happen all over the place. It's our job to take those small showings, evaluate them, do the geo work that needs to be done, the geoscience on them, to determine which of those you're going to advance and try to prove up a resource.
Gotcha.
This highlights the 2 active projects in the belt. So the Minto mine, we can see there, it's was initially an open pit mine. Now they've gone underground. They've got some really nice grades. They got 1.6% copper is a pretty good grade, and it comes with some good gold and silver credits with it as well. And then you can see the several zones that Copper North has identified on their ground, and our project is just to the north of that. And the interesting thing about that is you can see that you can draw a straight line through their zones. And then you can project that straight line onto our project, and that gives us a good starting point. Because what they've noticed in the belt is that there's these discrete pods of mineralization. They all line up in a very linear fashion, and that gives us a great start to build on what they've done to the south.
Yeah, and that's, again, a very metallic group way of doing things, right? You're looking for past mines, or you're looking for one that's already producing, and finding ways of property adjacent to it, and seeing where it connects and how it connects. So it makes sense that's a part of the metallic group.
Yeah, and here we see a great comparison of copper projects in Western Canada. And you can see the Minto mine and the Carmax project are the highest copper equivalent grades. So we're in a good district as far as grade goes, and now we just got to find some tonnage.
Absolutely, and that'll come with the drilling, of course, but that also comes with the planning, of course. Well, for our viewers, I know that they've heard about Group 10 metals and metallic minerals quite a few times. We've had you on, Michael and Greg, a few times, but first time coming on, Tim. So it's nice to see the third addition to the group.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on, and looking forward to seeing what happens in 2019 as it progresses. And we'll be sure to have you back on for some progress reports when they're available.
Well, we hope to have good news flow, and that's one of the things we're looking for.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on, guys.
Yes.
And back, Tim, thank you very much. Michael, thank you very much. That is the newest company of the metallic group, specifically focused on copper, which is definitely facing scarcity right now.
Do some DD on the Copper Creek.
1,000% do DD in copper and metals in general. Like I'm not kidding. Like, we're so focused on these high-flying gold, or we're so focused on cannabis, but we're in a situation right now where I think mining could be a very, very, very good long-term hold personally. Like, that's where I want a good portion of my money.
Yep. Easy on the advice, my friend.
There was no advice there. That was actually just a little bit vague. By the way, if you're wondering why does this set look different than that set, that's a new set that we're trying out. I hope you enjoy the dual looks.
Same style of table.
Same style of table. It's a great shield. That's what this looks like.
Shield, yeah.
If you look at it this way, it looks like a shield. If you look that way, it looks like a triangle. Perspective. It's a crazy thing.
Yeah. We need a shield in our relationship sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
Right?
Yeah. Just straight up, and then we don't talk to each other. It's perfect. But speaking of, there's no segue. Switching. Namaste.
77 cents.
77 cents.
How much money have you made since we started the show?
Looks like $720.
$720, folks, in 20 minutes because he has a horseshoe stuck up his ass.
He didn't make it because he didn't sell it.
I haven't sold it, yeah.
That is true. I shouldn't say horseshoe. That's not giving you enough credit, because Greg, actually, you act on a lot of the information you learned just from talking to people, looking at things. You've gotten really good at trading, my man. Making money while Karl and I are here just making fun of shields.
Just talking.
Yeah.
Talking nonsense.
You know what I didn't make money on?
A friend of mine said, hey, looks like Brandon's wearing a yarmulke. Because, they had the toque beside you there. And I said, you should move the toque, and you didn't listen.
7 acres.
Not that there's anything wrong with a yarmulke.
Fowler, like I'm not removing that 7 acres shirt. I believe in your company, the Supreme Cannabis Company. Sorry, bud.
Listen, you're going to have to call us.
You're going to have to fight Fowler to get me to take it off.
Keep that toque there. You're going to have to make a few emails and phone calls.
There we go. Same with Aroma. So, going on to what is happening with PDAC. Karl, you went there. What were your thoughts on it?
I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, it wasn't as busy as it was last year. Some people say it's the same. I think Sean nailed it, though. You don't have that crazy retail energy, which means, hey, it's a good sign that not a lot of people are interested. And it's not advice, but personally, I try to find stocks that I think are good that maybe not everybody's talking about. That's just what I do. I'm not saying you should do that. That's what I do. So at PDAC, that was kind of my sense was that it's not really exciting right now, but when it is, then you're chasing the FOMO.
Exactly. Think of how many times a result comes out and all of a sudden it goes up by 50-60%. All the people who had their money in there waiting are absolutely loving that, and everyone else is freaking out trying to get in and trying to play a trade, when for someone else who had an investment from a year ago, they're making great money off of it.
Honestly, you gotta study a little bit of psychology if you're gonna play the markets. Right,
Very
Brandon?
much so. Very much so. Very much so.
What do you think about that?
Sorry, I wasn't listening.
Yeah.
No, worried about the trade here. What happened? My bad.
He's staring at his trade, folks, because we like to trade live on camera. By I mean just Greg.
Yeah, just me.
So we have some friends here that the cameras can't see. We should get a camera, but I pissed one of them off.
Yeah, we've got Todd. I'll introduce one. You introduce one. We've got Todd. Todd is part of the reason, alongside Greg, that anybody who's in our community sees the news. And a lot of the people we bring on the show is through Todd as well. And if there's anyone watching this and you're wondering who's this Follow the Money, I know they emailed me one time. It was Todd as well. He's a lot of that as well.
Yeah, I'm actually not going to put the name of my friend here, but we'll call him Nelly. We'll call him Nelly.
Band-Aid or no Band-Aid?
Depends.
2002 Nelly, or like now Nelly, where you're looking at him like, oh my goodness.
That's really.
That's what happens when you see
really
him. Oh my goodness.
stupid comment.
Yeah.
But his name's Nelly.
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 That's a stupid comment, but I'm going to call him Nelly.
It's funny. I like the name Nelly. Nelly's here, hanging out.
Very nice.
Yeah.
It's all about Nelly.
Back to Namaste stage.
Back to stocks. But no, it was interesting, right? And you want to look at these companies, and I really like the companies that were much more honest, because from what I found, this is a personal opinion, there's a lot of used car salesman pitches that you get in mining, and those ones just, it turns you off right away. They might have something great, but when they're telling you this is our year, we just need some money, we need a couple, it's the exact same. And you get that one person or a few people are like, you know what? I think we got something special. Let me tell you why. And they actually go through it. I appreciate that so much more. And they are out there for sure. But you got to sift through them.
What did you think of the events? What was your favorite event, and what was the highlight from the events we went to?
So we went to several after party events. I actually really liked the one at the Walrus. And I believe that Sean Kingsley, who was on our podcast, I believe he had a part in that as well. Because it's interesting, there's people upstairs, everyone was talking, good food. Then you go downstairs and they had ping pong everywhere as well. So it had a much more laid back atmosphere.
Did you play any ping pong?
I did not play ping pong, because we went from there to the Royal York, where Metallic Minerals is one of the sponsors there. There's another event, and what I do like about all these events though, there's free alcohol everywhere.
Yeah, I don't.
And I gotta admit, that's a pretty good perk to go to one of these events. Free food, free alcohol. You got my attention. Sorry?
You get sloppy.
I did not. Not during those events. I did on Saturday, and there were no other events. We were at our office watching UFC, and I had a couple drinks.
Yeah, that was fun.
Of the whiskey.
Yeah, you were talking like.
Oh yeah, which whiskey did you get?
We were hanging out, and he was talking like he was hosting a show.
Well, I was in the studio, so it just made sense. There's microphones there. Why didn't I talk like this?
You mean you're on the other set?
Did you have some of Brent Mack's whiskey? The winning
did.
whiskey?
Yeah, because the Toronto Maple Leafs absolutely stomped the Oilers. And for American people watching, that's hockey. No, I kid you.
Let's test that, man.
That was rude.
That was very rude.
But no, I won a bet and had some great whiskey off of that.
Yeah, thanks,
it was
Brent.
fantastic.
Yeah. So you're enjoying the free booze and free food?
Namaste, by the way, up to 74 cents, 14% down. There's a lot of red today, actually. And Greg, you were saying you actually don't mind seeing some of this red because it's been such a green run. You gotta.
Honestly, this whole year has been really good.
I'm missing Johnny Mac today, our brother from another mother.
Wow.
Yeah, he's not here right now.
Yeah, because he was saying, you just watch out. It looks like the Bears came out on Spy and all that. And I would have really loved to pick his brain, but we'll get him back.
Absolutely. You want to hear a story?
No.
So, IEX was halted for 14 months. It's now turned into CityView Green. And my money stayed in there for 14 months. It unhalted.
It was the safest money for 14 months.
Yeah, it went down by 46% yesterday. It is down by 20.41% today. And
well, they don't have a CEO. Yeah. They don't have a finished building that they they talk about. I don't even know why they really unhalted. They should have just stayed halted until they got some stuff going.
I'll be honest with you, man. I've met a lot of these junior companies now. You could probably just be a CEO yourself, dude.
I should.
Yep, just sign up.
Heard it here first.
All right, I'm going to apply.
I think you could pull it off, man.
But yeah, no, it's, and I don't say this to bash the company. I still own all my shares. Everything I say right now affects my actual holding, so I'm just being honest. It's just, I was scrolling through some of these tickers.
TD screwed me over once again with that kind of stuff, because I literally tried to call them yesterday to sell, because you couldn't do it yesterday because they're doing the consolidation, and then the name change from Icon Exploration. TD didn't have their papers in, so they said that they couldn't do it. But I've found out that RBC had their papers in, CIBC, Scotiabank. So I called TD back and being like, well, why can't you guys do it if all these other banks are doing it? And they just don't get theirs as fast as all these other brokers. And then they told me that I could call back on Thursday and they might be able to do it if they know that the papers are in transit. Then they'll be able to do it before they actually physically get the papers. And so I was like, okay, fine, I'll call on Thursday and see if I can do it then. I find out today that it is in my account, so that obviously they have gotten the papers, and I could have probably done it yesterday because they were obviously in transit.
See what happens when you deal with humans?
Well, but now do they compensate me for the loss of, what was it, you said 60%?
Oh, yeah, roughly around there, yeah.
60-80% of a loss that I could have had?
It's bad. I experienced, I left a lot of money on the table with a company I will not even talk about right now. And I wanted to exercise some warrants, and you know, they couldn't do it because of the lag in the system. And then I was like, okay, well, let me short the stock to lock in the gains, and I wasn't allowed to do that. So basically, they didn't have a solution to my problem, and they didn't have something for me to execute.
Carl gets angry when there's no solutions.
I'm seeing your comment right now, and
What's that?
I'm seeing your comment right now. Scott said, it's probably a good thing talking about the title that's now switched, which is fantastic. It doesn't need any more. The other day when he figured out CXXI is Roman numerals, killed me. Well, you know what? I didn't know CXXI was Roman numerals.
What do you mean?
XXI is 21.
Yeah, you didn't know it was C21?
10 and 1. And C21 investments in CXXI. That's very clever, actually. I just never thought anything else of it.
You didn't know that it was C21 and that it was Roman numerals they were using?
It makes perfect sense.
Oh my God.
Scott, you're brilliant. Apparently Greg is brilliant, and I'm not. I'm an idiot. Or just didn't see it.
Stupid.
Yeah. I think that's it's very witty. I like that.
I can't believe that's hilarious.
I'm just looking at the comment now. Moving on with the show. Moving on. So PDAC, a lot of this is centered around mining because PDAC is the biggest convention in the world for mining. It happens once a year. And my very first interview I ever did, Carl says, hey, you want to go to this PDAC convention? It's mining. I'm like, I don't know anything about mining. We picked up a cell phone, a lapel mic, and a stand that was broken.
Do we have that interview?
And went in there. The
Nelly
was there, FTMIG.
Nelly was there.
Nelly was there. I'm choosing 2002 Nelly. He was there as well. And we just went up to him like, do you want to do a Facebook Live? And we're going to ask you questions. And he's like, oh, okay. He looked like he was crazy. Came full circle. Global UAV is they're drones that are able to do mapping for companies where you don't need humans to do it, in the sense of you don't actually have to be in the helicopters. So you take away that risk of, unfortunately, what we were told later is that people die almost every single year doing that. It's a shame.
Yeah.
And
they're trying to fly so low that, you know, very close to the trees, and if there's a big gust of wind that comes over a mountain, there's a lot of accidents that have occurred. It's very unfortunate.
Yeah, and
so this is a solution, which I like. Solutions, right, Nelly?
Absolutely. So we're going over to his company right now. We're just explaining the efficacy of the program that they're doing, and that this is technology he believes will really start taking over the mining industry. We met with Michael Burns, who's the CEO, and we'll go over there now to our other set and see what he had to say. And we're joined here today with Michael Burns, CEO of Global UAV Technologies. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Brandon. Pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Absolutely. And for our viewers who've been with us for a long time, this is coming full circle because you were one of our first Facebook Live interviews that we did last year at PDAC. It's been an entire year now.
Yeah, it was great. I remember that, actually, and thanks a lot for the exposure. It was pretty cool to do an interview with you live and see the reaction online and grow our exposure. So that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. We're going to go through a little bit of an update of what you've been up to over the last year. But first, just a really quick question. As you know, in recent months, there's been this bridge market scandal that's been an ongoing investigation. Just curious, when it comes to Anthony Jackson, what was his role with your company?
Yeah, so Anthony Jackson was our former CFO of the company, and he was in that role during the transition period when the issuer turned into a change of business and went through that transaction to be a UAV company, and he was a contract CFO during that time. And since then, we've transitioned to Jonathan Richards, who's our current CFO.
Okay, and he's not there at the company anymore.
Correct. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, and they appreciate that, guys. That's always investors see that name and they always have questions. So I appreciate you answering that. When it comes to your company, it's been 12 months since we last did this. What have you been up to, and how's everything been going?
Yeah, so we've been very busy, as our investors know, and what we've done in the last 2 years, it has built a very substantial operating company. So we grew up to 30 or so people company wide. Services have expanded to over 11 or 12 countries, working in 4 continents worldwide, and our client base has grown significantly as well. So all of that is in addition to multiple acquisitions that we did to really solidify that group of a diverse group of drone companies that are bringing together some consolidation in the space. So we have a services division where we fly commercial professional grade surveys. So we're not doing photos and videos. That's not in our repertoire. We can do that stuff, but our focus is on LiDAR surveys, magnetometer surveys, industry focused services with drones, and that's where we are really excelling. The other side is R&D and tech development. That takes capital, it takes time. We can come very close to completing that project and taking it through to commercialization. So very exciting step for the company in that stage. And the other end is regulatory compliance and all the other factors that we do. So bringing those companies together has been a lot of the heavy lifting over the last year, but it's really reassuring to see the growth that we've had for our services and client acquisition and new customer growth and geographical growth, and that really reaffirms that our technology is being widely adopted in the market, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because like our talk last time where you really focus on those properties where it's much too large to do a walking survey, and it's too small to have a mag survey. So you kind of service that in between where this drone can go up there and get a lot of this done, especially in that terrain where it's also really dangerous to be walking as well. I believe that recently you just had your financials come out, and there was quite a good increase actually from year over year. Can you go a little bit more into those results?
Sure. So we're growing, and there's a few things in our financials that show that we're growing. One is the company that we've built was a result of investing a lot of capital and a lot of time. So we have and we also have revenue to show for that. So right now our financials are out of balance in terms of we're spending more money than we're making. However, we're on track to realize that revenue growth over time, and we have a target of becoming a profitable company in the future, and that's what we're working towards. So early startup companies, if you look at the scale of things, I mean, what we've done in the last year, major multinational mining company client acquisition. So we have some of the largest mining companies in the world in our customer book. We're flying multiple surveys for them worldwide, so it means they like what we've done for them, and they keep coming back for more because we strive to meet their quality demands, and it's useful for them. So the financials show growth. They show that we're investing heavily into our company and into that growth, and we're forward looking in terms of where we're going. So a lot of new startup tech companies, they take tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars to start up and come to market, and sometimes they do it successfully, sometimes they don't. We're already at the commercialization stage, and that's an important distinction to make here. We're doing tech development, but we're already commercialized. So our services are proving that we have a viable business that's growing, and that's really exciting. And that's something that is a pretty solid achievement in our books.
Yeah, and I'm actually very curious as well. How is the industry really evolving with technology? Because, you know, of all the industries, I think of, you know, mining sometimes it takes time, but to go from one thing to the other. But what we're really seeing with certain mining companies is that obviously, like when you look at a property that wasn't really feasible 10 years ago, but now it is because of technology. They can do new things. When it comes to the UAV and when it comes to actually having drones and using them, do you find people are really starting to jump on that wagon, or is there still some hesitancy there to really take that into one of the repertoires of what they use?
Yeah, and that's a good question, because it really leads into the appetite for technology right now. And I always tell our clients and our investors, you know, what's separating you guys from your competitors, or what's innovative about what you're doing. You know, why should I invest in a drone company? And on our services side, what I tell our customers is that they're not paying us to fly a drone. Okay, they're paying us to collect data. But we found a way to collect data safer, cheaper, and have higher quality results. So using a drone to do that has made us very successful in that space. And it also pushes out our competition in the fact that, you know, we have health and safety procedures and records that allow us to work on major multinational mining company sites. We've worked for a lot of big companies, and we've gone through independent aviation audits. And so the whole scope of taking an idea and growing that into a business and actually making it work in the field is not an easy process, and it takes a lot of time to build it, but that's been successful. And you know, right now we're setting records of achievements, and one of the cool things, you know, as we sit here literally talking to each other, we have a crew in South America that's flying a drone at over 5,000 meters in elevation.
Wow!
So that's you know, 17,000 feet high. It's never been done before.
Yeah.
So when you talk about what technology is doing for the industry, we are now able to survey in areas that never had a solution before. So part of it, like you said, is filling a gap in the marketplace between ground-based surveys and airborne surveys. The other side of it is we're actually building our own marketplace, because companies are now able to come to us and say, we could never get a mag survey done here before. You can't do it by foot because it's at 15,000 feet elevation, or it's too jagged, or there's lakes in the way and rivers. It's just not feasible. Or it's too dangerous to fly with a helicopter. You know, the weather's too inclement in the high terrain, or the altitude's too high. We can go there and fly in the middle of the night when the winds are calm at, you know, 5,000 meters elevation, and that survey could never be done before. So it's really building our own marketplace, and that's pretty exciting to see when you have the only tool out there and the only company really doing this. Sorry, one of the only companies doing this. And the potential is huge. I mean, we're just scratching the surface of you know, how big this market is. It's massive, and we're just dipping our toes into it now.
Yeah, it's a good point when you're talking about technology, and how we've known this for decades. You know, when you start bringing certain technologies in, they simply do work better than humans can. A lot of the times, not all the time, but a lot of the times, because they can do it faster, safer, whatever it be. So it will be interesting to see as that's coming more and more into this sector, and people are more open to it as well. You know, there's a lot of old school people, is my understanding as well. You see a lot of old school people in the mining industry, but even them, you know, they're understanding that if there's a newer technology that can do the job, like you said, safer, cheaper, and easier, and I believe you also said more effectively, why wouldn't you use that technology?
Yeah, and it's something that we've seen the initial adoption through private companies, junior companies. So some of our first customers were actually major miners that picked up the phone and said, "Hey, I saw an article about you. You know, is it true? Are you actually flying geophysics using a drone?" And I said, "Yeah." And you know, well, can you come out and survey this project for us? We kind of have been looking at this as a solution, but didn't know it was capable now. And yeah, absolutely. You know, when do you want us there? So it's been really neat to see the transition going from, you know, junior companies are attracted to this because it's cheaper, it's effective. They're getting good data quality. Major companies like it because it's very safe. They're reducing a lots of crew logistics in fields and putting crews in dangerous positions. Everything from slip trips and falls in the bush, getting a stick in the eye, to animal encounters, or having trucks and lots of logistics to set up camp somewhere off remote. You can go in and out with 2 people in 2 days and do what would have taken probably 2 to 3 weeks to do with a ground crew and full support. So really reduces their environmental footprint, the safety hazards and everything. So it's a win for everybody, and we're seeing the result of that in terms of how in demand those services are.
Yeah, and just the way you put it there, it does make sense for a lot of these different elements to be able to cut all those different either costs or risks out of it for a product that can do it and not have those. So absolutely. Now, coming from an investor standpoint,
sure.
Looking at, I believe you closed at 3 cents for today. It has come down the last little while, but that's a lot of it's with all the different production that you've been doing and the research and development, and we've seen revenues come out now. If I was an investor right now, and to anybody reading this, what should I be expecting over the course of this year in 2019, and what do you want investors to be excited about for you in this year?
Yeah, and that's a really valid question. I mean, it's in the marketplace. It's difficult times, and we're seeing that as well as a public company. However, look at our track record and understand what we're doing, and we are a solutions company, a drone technology solutions company that is delivering commercialized solutions to industry, and be it on the technology development side, on the Precion, all the way through to our services. We've had success in terms of the targets that we've set to finish development of the product on, and to grow the services sector, to enter new markets. For instance, we acquired a LiDAR sensor to the tune of $200,000. There's only 2 of them in Canada right now, and that has opened the door to a whole another opportunity and vertical that we can grow into, and that we see the potential being as big or bigger than Pioneer Aerial. So those are the sorts of things that are really accelerative in terms of where we're headed. Excuse me. But the exciting part is a lot of companies are developing technology and putting ideas together, and exploring the future potential of that. Well, we've done that, and we passed those hard stages of taking an idea to reality, right? So we've commercialized it, and the important thing to understand about global UAV is we're cash flowing and we're growing revenues. So in where we're looking to go towards the future is increasing that trend and continuing to grow our revenues and expand our customer base, but also reduce our expenses and come out with more balanced financials. And that's where we're targeting. So we have an operating business, we have cash flow, we are a tech development company, but there's a huge potential for growth in where we are, and we're actively pushing hard to make that happen.
I appreciate the answer. And for anybody who is looking for more information on technicals or your team, corporate presentation, your website where they can tune in to do some more due diligence on you.
Sure, it's globaluavtech.com.
Perfect. And it's the UAV is the ticker, and I believe you're on the CSC.
That's right, Canadian Securities Exchange.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for coming. Like I said earlier, coming full circle, and it's been 1 full year since our last interview. I wish you all the best, and getting you back on the show again in the near future, so you can let us know about the different developments throughout the year.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Hopefully, and in the least, we'll see you again this time next year.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right. Cheers.
And we are old school. You're going to go to the slider photo while they go back. Didn't do it. Made me look awful. Mm-hmm. Guys,
listen, good interview. I'm excited about that company. They're not a client. I don't own the stock. We were talking while it was the interview was airing. I'd love to bring him back because I actually have some follow-up questions now after seeing that interview. But I really like the guy. And what's the stock at? 3.5 cents?
3.5 cents,
yeah. So the first time you interviewed him, what was that?
Yeah, and you know what we noticed?
I believe 11 or so, about a year ago.
Oh, okay.
we're talking to all these other companies, and they know about him. They know about his technology. So I think I think he's really got something there.
You're thinking about a buyout there, aren't you?
I think, in general, I really like the technology. Everything about what he's doing makes perfect sense for the industry. You do need to see more revenues come in. You need to see the fact, how hard is it? What are the barriers to entry? It's interesting that his team are geologists who then learned how to fly drones, opposed to what he was saying about a lot of people who fly drones and are trying to learn how to do geology. One of those two is way easier to learn.
Yeah.
But you gotta see some results still as well. But it's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of business out there for him to grab.
Yeah.
And it just makes sense when you think about flying a drone versus humans going out there and surveying on in this landscape that's really, really risky. I mean, what makes more sense this day and age? Todd's looking at me, shaking his head. He knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And so is Nelly.
Good point.
So is Nelly. Nelly's not shaking his head.
Oh, no, he is.
He's shaking no. But for different reasons. Probably because we're calling him Nelly. I really do think it's drones over a human flying a helicopter that can get killed.
Yeah, as long as the technology works and the results are exactly what they would have been, and the geologists and the team can use them. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
That business makes a lot of sense to me. So I just want to know more about patents and, like I was saying in between there, I want to know more about the patents. What's their plan for scaling up? So more questions for him. Let's bring him back, get him on our set, whether this set, the other set, get him on a set.
Absolutely. And going back to the overall mining, because I'm getting ready to go into that metallic minerals interview because you haven't seen it yet, actually.
I have not. Are you going to not talk during the thing?
During the actual interview?
Yeah.
That's really hard, actually.
I know.
I might have to leave the room not to talk so you can actually listen. Or put headphones in. One of the two works. The interview itself, though, the reason why I like is that about 40% of it easily is nothing to do with their company whatsoever. It's more so Greg's always been really good at telling you about the actual market, what's happening.
I have.
And going back against that, this Greg, not this Greg. There's a certain chart that's going to go up for the people who are watching right now. There's a certain chart that's going to go up, and honestly, it's the lowest since the 1970s. We said this when we first began. Lowest since the 1970s for first commodities and equities, and that's why I've got some mining companies that are in my portfolio. I do have metallic minerals, by the way, full disclosure, and I think it's going to be there for a few years because I'm not looking for a huge spike and then a quick sell. I want to start finding ones I can actually invest in because I'm naturally an investor over a trader.
Well, you know what, the thing is, at this point in these drill programs, you're not really investing, you're speculating. And listen, I like metallic groups that are client. They've got all you would probably want in a management team. There's 3 companies there. They leverage things perfectly. They can cut their costs down, but at the end of the day, it's junior mining, and most companies don't. It's risky. So that's why it's more speculative. And this is why when there's a lot of hype going on with companies and they might have hit or whatever, and if you get in early and the thing starts taking off, you've got to lock in some gains.
Correct.
You know what I mean? Just because you're speculating, right? And there's a different. Maybe you could argue more of an investor comes in when the assays come out, and and they can read those really creative news releases that I struggle with so much. But that's the only thing I don't like about mining is it's hard for me to understand. But I'm learning and I'm leveraging relationships, so I'm in there playing around.
Absolutely, and you have to keep learning, right? Think of how much we've learned just in the last year because we've thrown ourselves into this so much. Coming from cannabis is, we know a lot about cannabis in the sector and the stocks, but going to other ones, you got to put that time in. No one's going to ever just all of a sudden, okay, now I'm an expert at something.
Yeah,
got to keep trying to learn.
I think now is a really good time to just plug our Twitter and plug our Facebook, FTMIG on Facebook, like our page, FTM Media on YouTube. Getting up there in subscribers. What else we got? Follow the Money Investor Group. We've got a private group, which you guys went live. Todd and you went live for the GGI presentation at PDAC.
Yeah, that was
value added right there.
Yeah.
Everyone was really excited about the Lightfoot presentation. Our Discord chat rooms, the GGI voice channel has been amazing the last couple of weeks. Everyone after that news release, there was like 40 people in there, and you had Hoover. Yeah. Larry Hoover, who's very well known in junior mining, pretty well respected. Wouldn't call himself a geologist, but someone I listened to. Then you had engineer breaking down Yuki, breaking down those results. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And where else would you go if you're a speculator?
That's
I know where you wouldn't go.
learning.
I know where you wouldn't go, and I won't say it.
Yeah, that's actually where I am learning the most about mining, because some of these results come out, and if it's gold or silver or something, it's getting a little bit easier now because I've seen so many.
I'm not done
Some of these other
plugging.
ones couldn't even go. Oh, sorry, folks.
So if you want to get in those chat rooms, you got to sign up at ftmig.com. It's free, and you can get access to the chat rooms. And we moderate them. We're very active in there. You'll find myself, Brandon, Todd, Lucky G over here. Nellie's in there. Never talks though. There you go. And I feel like I'm getting a cramp in my hammy, and if that happens, I'm going to roll over in my chair.
Well, on that note, folks, on that note, we'll go to our interview with Greg, and honestly, pay attention to some of the things he says about the mining sector as a whole. I think you're going to learn from this, because I certainly did when I was talking to him. We'll head over there now. And we're joined here today with Greg Johnson, CEO of Metallic Minerals. My good man, you are not someone our group has not seen before. You've been on here a few times now. Welcome back.
That's good to be back here in your nice studio. Thank you.
Yeah, a different set. We got to keep everything changing all the time. We got to keep different images coming at people.
Yeah.
But we're also, it's PDAC right now. You've been down here for a few days. How's the event been going?
Yeah, so PDAC is the largest mining event in the world. I think there's something like 35,000 people here attending, probably 1,000 companies. So yeah, a good vibe. I think people are optimistic that the sector is starting to turn the corner. It's been 8 long years of a bear market, which is challenging.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've had a very busy schedule of meetings, and getting a lot of attention in the Metallic group of companies, and it's been a really good event for us.
Awesome. And specifically to Metallic Minerals, what have you been up to these last few months? You've had some news releases out in the last little while. What are you excited about, and what's happened since the last time we spoke?
Yeah, so Metallic Minerals is a silver-focused company in the Yukon Territory. We're in the high-grade Keno Hill Silver District next to Alexco Resources, who's going back into production starting in the second half of this year, they said in their presentation. So it's a district that has seen this long history of production, so it's elephant country for finding more deposits. And we've been there for now. This is our 3rd year, so we had 2 field seasons, and our process has been one of compiling all the historic information that we could get, these extensions of the known mineralized trends that come onto our ground truthing those, getting our geologists out on the ground and mapping and doing all the layers to really get the full suite of information that we can put together. We did some initial drilling, which confirmed that we had high-grade, spectacular-grade drill results on a couple of targets, which was a great kind of proof of concept program. And we've been building on that since, with last year's program starting to fill in some of the areas we didn't have as much information, advancing targets. So we've now gone from acquisition mode over the first year, where we basically acquired and aggregated the district. It was very patchwork land ownership in the Keno district because it's had this long history. We took 40 owners and compressed those into 166 square kilometer land position that Metallic Minerals controls, which directly adjoins Alexco. And so now we've been undertaking this exploration program to really start to say, okay, we've got 100 million ounces that have been defined in the last couple of years, new discoveries. But geology doesn't stop at the land border, so how can we find the next series of deposits in the district? We've been making very good progress towards that.
Yeah, and for all those who were wondering about the elephant country, we actually had a really long Facebook Live going over that. So I just always like to remind anyone who's watching this right now, if you go to FTMIG.com, there's a feature page that you can see for Metallic Minerals. We have all of your news releases are all aggregated there, but also several different videos of going over. We did one actually where what to look for in a mining company, not specific to yours, just in general. You know, what are the things you should be looking for, and then also going over, the 3 companies that are together, what your vision is for the company, and all of that. So for anybody who's wanting to go back to that information, you can always go there because there's lots of great footage there for you to watch and listen to.
Yeah, I think those are a lot of the themes that we kind of hit there. Are if you're looking at the mining sector, particularly exploration stage companies like metallic minerals and others, what kinds of things can you be looking for, and understanding the stages is pretty important to understand. Is this an explorer? Is this a developer? Is this a producer? And what should you be looking for? So I think we covered some good information on those early interviews in that way.
Absolutely. And we're going to go to a slide in your investor presentation really quickly here. But there's also about 10 to 12 very, very detailed maps where I'm looking at them, and a few of them I'm like, oh, this is great to see. A few of them what am I looking at? Yeah. And so we're going to go over that actually in a subsequent interview of diving into those. So for anybody who wants to know a little bit more and go through it, but especially for those who don't really know what they're looking at, we're going to do that in another interview very shortly here. But there is a slide coming up that we wanted to focus on specifically about, I believe it's commodities versus equities.
Correct. Yeah. So I think this is in one of our recent presentation decks, and it's a group out of Europe called Incrementum. And these guys do some really nice fundamental work. They've got a website that people can cruise over to and take a look at. But this is one of their charts that I think really tells the story of commodities, the cycles that commodities go through, and how these are relative to the general equities market. So if you look at the Dow Jones or the S&P 500 or the TSX, and how at different times those cycles can be kind of opposite of one another. So what this chart is showing you is from 1970 to present. So you've got several decades of information, this relative cycle of valuation. And so this is what's called the Goldman Sachs Commodities Index. So it's a broad basket index of commodities. So it would have metals, it would have probably oil and gas, and then you're dividing it by the S&P 500. So you're taking the whole largest 500 companies in the U.S. market and dividing it into that. And so what you can see is that when commodity values are high and equity values are low, you're going to have a peak in this chart. And when commodity values are low and equity values are high, as is the case currently, you can have a low. And so you can see these broad decade scale cycles. So the great financial crisis was the last peak in commodities. And then we saw a bull market since 2008 in general market equities. So in this chart, it now positions us at one of the lowest relative valuations for commodities versus the general market. In other words, the general market is at a peak on this relative valuation, and commodities are at the maximum trough. And so what it tells us, it doesn't tell us when this is going to change, but the concept of reversion to the mean is that these things go through cycles, that there's an average cycle that's kind of a benchmark for maybe you'd say fair value or average value, and that when you're at extreme lows or extreme highs, it really gives you a good indication. Should I be buying this sector or should I be selling this sector? No,
exactly. And it looks like since 1970, it might be just paired with 1970, but I believe it's actually just below 1970. It hasn't had such a disparity, such a trough, such a low compared to equities since the 70s. Yeah. And that, for myself personally, that's one of the reasons why I started looking into mining companies as an investment opposed to a trade, because of signs like this. This is proven facts over time. And I like the way that you said it as well, is that it's not going to change tomorrow. Yeah. We're not going to go on a bull run next week, per se. We could. You don't never know. But what it is saying is that it hasn't been this low in a very, very, very long time. And the last real big peak that we had was back in the financial crisis. So that's right. It does pose, it gives a really interesting question is this a time to start accumulating? And speaking to people at PDAC and speaking to people who've been investing in mining for a long time, I think you're seeing a lot of smart money there. Not so many retail investors, but more so smart money, which I personally like for myself because I want to get into something earlier. I don't mind waiting if I can start seeing some of the things line up that show that there's probably a reversal that has a higher potential of a reversal, I should say, than say if I was investing in 2008 or 9 when it was at its peak. It's a much different story. Yeah.
So I think your points are really good, that these are long term, but the opportunity to buy and see something appreciate over time, you want to look for these. And these signals don't happen very often. These cycles, these are something that come along once a decade. And so to be at this point in the commodities cycle where you can be buying things at these kind of depressed values, knowing that ultimately we're going to see it go through the mean, and then eventually get to an overvalued position is a great opportunity for investors. So starting to look at good quality names, doing your due diligence, understanding the management and the potential, knowing that you're kind of buying straw hats in winter, so to speak, knowing that at some point those commodities are going to rise again as we go into the next economic cycle. And we're going to see, some of these things be able to return significant multiples on their current levels down the road.
Yeah, and now turning to make it more specific on metallic minerals, silver being one of your major focuses, if not the major focus. I remember last time we were speaking as well, there was another ratio we were going by, and that was the silver to gold ratio.
That's right.
And the prices. And I don't believe that's really closed that much since we last spoke, but for people who weren't aware of that, can you explain that ratio?
Yeah, so a lot of people who follow gold and silver closely will take a look at the relative value between the gold price and the silver price as an indication of kind of interest in the sector. With gold, it's almost entirely investment driven in terms of the valuations. It's a long-term store of value, but the relative ups and downs are driven by investor appetite largely. And so it is a barometer of investor interest. When we look at silver, half of silver consumption is industrial. So the other half is kind of the investment. And so what we tend to see is they move together. So they tend to, all the precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, palladium, they tend to move together in a direction. Gold is the biggest market by far. Okay. Silver tends to follow the direction of gold. But as investor interest and demand starts to pick up, that incremental demand in the silver price suddenly, because all the silver that's produced every year gets largely consumed industrially, there isn't as much silver available. And so we start to see the silver price rise faster than the gold price. So looking again at the cycle like this, during these troughs, we tend to see silver underperform gold. But as we start to move up this next leg of this longer term commodity cycle, at some point we'll see the silver outperforming gold. And one way to measure that is the silver to gold ratio. So if we take the gold price, so roughly $1,250 an ounce, $1,200, $1,300 an ounce, and divide that by the silver price, which is roughly $15 an ounce, today you get a ratio of about 80 plus. And there are very few times, just like this chart, that you see it at that high of a ratio. And on the low end, when silver is very expensive relative to gold, it can be as low as 40, 50, 30 even, and at some points even as low as 15 to 1. So it can have these big swings in value, and a lot of investors look to it. When they start to see the gold-silver ratio in the 80s, that is one of these periods that says, okay, we're at a trough again for valuations. That means silver is very cheap relative to gold, and that's an indicator that a lot will follow very closely. So people are watching right now. Are we going to see that ratio drop below 80 again and start to head towards its mean, which is probably closer to 50? And if so, that's an indication that we may be at the beginnings of a more vigorous bull market. A lot of people think right now we're in the kind of bottoming phase of this cycle, which is good. It means it's an opportunity to be picking up good quality names while they're cheap, and before it starts to move into a more enthusiastic phase of the market.
Yeah, and you never want to, it's hard to start chasing rockets. We say it all the time in our chat rooms, be very mindful if something's gone up 50, 60, 80, 100% in a day or a course of a week. You really want to be able to find companies beforehand. And again, one of the reasons why I really like looking into mining companies at this moment is because I'm seeing more graphs like this, and unlike other sectors, it's very cyclical. And there's a lot of data that you can turn back to and find out, okay, what is normal? And if you know something is well off normal, either way, if it was the exact opposite, I think I'd be more cautious right now. If we were well above the normal and we were running, okay, are we at a top? But it's just really nice to see to know these different things, because that allows you to then go, okay, what companies am I going to go into? Which ones do I think have that value? But you have to, in my opinion, go into it in a way of, this is an investment. This might not change next week. It might not change this month. But when it does, which history tells us it does every time, it just depends on when, you have to start looking into which horses you're going to be in. So this is the pitch for you at this point. For when it comes to metallic minerals, what are you excited about for the year of 2019? And as an investor, what can investors be looking out for throughout this year?
Yeah, so maybe just before I touch on the metallic points, just to make a couple of comments about where I think we are relative to, say, metallic minerals and others in the market. So if we look back, as you mentioned, there's almost all this history you can look at on some of these charts. You can look back at these companies, and many of them have been compressed since the peak in the commodity cycle in 2011, 95, 98%. So that kind of bear market compression as we've gone through this low. At the bottoms, we tend to see volumes starting to pick up, maybe not the price quite yet. And then over a period of time, as people are accumulating, we start to see these stocks get more active. And eventually we start to see the prices, break out. And I think that's been where we've been the last couple of years, and investors can kind of anticipate this next cycle. If it's a typical cycle, we could see those same companies do the reverse of that 10-to-1 compression. If they've got good assets, a good team, and they're active and out there exploring, and with a little bit of success at the drill hole, we could really see these things start to move. So what are those things that in metallic minerals you could start to expect? Well, as we've been building our land package and our database and our three-dimensional modeling that we've been doing on the property, it's been during this bottoming period. So it's been, not only has this commodity cycle been bottoming, but we've been doing that groundwork, early stage analysis to be able to get prepared. So coming into this year and in subsequent years, we now have this huge data set that allows us to be able to look at the areas and prioritize to say, here's an area that we think has promise. It's drill ready now to go in and start to drill holes, try to put together the mineralization distribution and understand where to go next. And it's a process. It's something that if people are looking at mining companies, they need to realize typically it takes 2 or 3, 4 years of exploration before you really have a good sense of what you've got. And if you can get involved in at this particular part of the cycle, and while companies are still before they've drilled all their spectacular holes, that's really the best value in terms of setting yourself up for future gains.
Sure, and I appreciate that. And you've always been very, very open with that as well, with our community about, it's a process. You've got, like you said, you have to go through the very beginnings of a company. You start doing your mapping, you start planning it out, then you do your first couple of drills, you see what's coming out there. Was I right with all my mapping? And you keep progressing from that. But it's been interesting to follow. You're also one of 3 different companies in the metallic group. And you are the oldest one, actually.
So metallic minerals was started in 2016. First, so we've got, this will be our 3rd year as a company. So you're going to see the same kind of pattern in Group 10 metals, which we started last year, which is platinum focused in Montana. And then the latest one that just started trading in January, our Granite Creek Copper company. So we've got the benefit of having that time to develop our database, do those acquisitions, develop our database, and this will be our 3rd field season. So we're pretty excited about being able to test some of those targets in metallic. Coming into this year at Group 10, last year we were on the ground doing the ground truthing, following up on all the data that we had on the ground during the field, so mapping and additional geophysics and other work. This year we're hoping to be able to drill test and kind of proof of concept on some of those. And then Granite Creek is in that earliest stage, part of getting the data set together, 3-dimensionalizing this historic data so that you can start to visualize it in 3D and understand what the targets are and laying those out. So this year, this will be the ground truthing part, and on Granite Creek, hopefully maybe even by the end of the year, we could be drilling on that one, which would be a pretty exciting.
Awesome to hear. Yeah. Well, for all of our viewers, and thank you very much for taking your time. PDAC is a crazy few days. So thank you for coming in and speaking to some of your current shareholders and possibly some potential new shareholders. If you're looking for more information, you can always go to ftmig.com. We have a feature page for you. All the news releases, videos are there, and your website as well, just so I don't get it wrong.
Yeah, metallic-minerals.com.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure, my good man. And I'm sure we'll have you in here very soon to go over your presentation and all those charts and letting investors know what exactly they mean.
Thanks a lot. Glad to be here.
Do we have to? We're not worthy. We're not worthy. Camera 2.
Yeah, no, you missed Greg. There's the 3 people doing it.
Value added from Greg
Johnson.
Thanks
for that, Greg. Honestly, I appreciate
that clip. I'm talking, Brandon.
Go on then.
We need to edit that clip, get it out there, and let everyone know that was huge value.
No, absolutely. I thought you were going to keep going, but then you stopped.
No, just wanted to make that.
No, I appreciate it. There's some comments in here as well, where Scott and Papa, both of you have great points, especially with Scott talking about, you invest a lot in cannabis and you're hearing certain things about mining and you're interested about it. Mining is a very, very, there's a lot to learn in the mining sector and junior exploration, but it could also be very fortuitous, while at the same time it can also be very scary at times as well. So the more you learn, the better you are at picking out winners from losers. And I think the biggest thing that we found so far is pick a management team that knows what they're doing. It's not that's no guarantee. You still have to hit the right intercepts. You still have to execute. But the management team's so important.
The thing is,
he's just
like,
so smart.
If you can get in the bottom or near the bottom of the cycle, then the cycle will pick you up. Right? When the hype and the momentum is there, you're stuck.
You said the same thing when you were talking about like just the regular sectors of like cannabis and all that kind of stuff too. When you talked about the fear bot, you saw it at the almost complete bottom of the other way.
Remember, it was extreme fear, and it's just difficult.
Like, don't go off the fear bot, but obviously.
But you know what? It's so interesting is that when the fear bot was telling us that there was extreme fear, you watch BNN, anything, any media clip that was on Facebook about the market, it was all about,
it's not gonna
we're due
work.
for a recession, and we can pull back to this valuation, and
They
what
add the
ended
fear.
up happening, So all of those things that you hear buy when there's blood in the streets, not a recommendation, but if you just follow those things.
Absolutely, and there's certain things you should be looking for. And for anybody who wanted to watch more, by the way, Greg Johnson and Metallic Minerals are a client of FTMIG.com, have been for some time. So you can go on to our website and go to featured companies and look at Metallic Minerals, and we attach all of their news releases, but more importantly, all the videos we've done for them. And we've actually had a lot of interviews with Greg, and we had an hour-long Facebook Live one time where we specifically just spoke about what to look for in a mining company and how can you tell one company from another and if it's good or not. So a lot of educational material, because that goes with bringing people these companies to invest in. You can't just do only bringing in people. You can't just bring in just companies. I think we should be educating people as well. Those two go together.
That's the value in it. If that clip right there with that chart, if that doesn't get someone excited about looking into, which junior mining companies would be good, or just mining in general, then, don't watch this show.
Yeah. You heard it here first. Do not watch us if you don't want to learn.
Yes, I'm being honest. Just go somewhere else.
No, it is true. And so many people, unfortunately, just want to be spoon-fed things, and that's okay from time to time if someone's helping you out and they give you like a tip or something. But if you're going just off of what we're saying, you're going to lose your money one day because you're not going to get out at the same time as us because we're constantly
and we're not responsible
reassessing.
For that. So
That's why we don't say don't buy. We don't use the words buy, sell, or hold. We are not financial advisors, even though going back to TD, every single financial advisor I've ever met there was just so not smart in a lot of different ways. And I'd go in and say something, they'd look at me and go, oh, that's a good point. I know it's a good point because I actually went to school for what you're doing. But coming back into this, forgive that, I have a really bad thing about TD sometimes.
Well, I could pull out my mega douche story.
Yeah, we've said that a few times. But no, honestly, do your due diligence, be in networks, talk to people, you learn. Before you know it, you start realizing you can actually soak up. The hardest is the very first part about learning when it comes to stock markets and investing, because you have no idea what a bid or ask is. You don't understand L2, you don't understand the game, you don't know what's going on. But as you start going, I personally think it's easier and easier to make the next steps because you're building off of that core knowledge that was the hardest to start in the first place.
Yeah, it's just exciting. It's changed my life. My friend Nelly here understands. He's been there through the different phases of my life, and it's financial IQ. You got to understand and assess and learn to be comfortable with risk. It's a whole different thought process.
Absolutely.
Which I look forward to the journey on both sets here, our new set and this set, explaining that and bringing on guests and hopefully helping some people.
Yep. Absolutely. Greg and I always laugh. We'll look at something, we'll laugh like, oh yeah, I just went down $5,000. And really we should be crying. But we're used to it by now. Sucks though still. When you look back and see, oh, there goes a good chunk of money.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about the wins though. How much are you up in an hour?
Oh yeah, how's Namaste doing?
It's at 75 now.
And when did you buy it when we first started this?
62.
Yeah. He bought one.
Does anyone
was
put a
freaking
bell in the
out.
office? Can you put a bell? I don't know if you've got one.
Sound
put a bell
effects.
if you can. But that's fantastic, man.
Yeah. No, it's great. He bought, when everyone was freaking out because of this, what was it? Who was it that resigned? It wasn't the accountant. It was the
auditors. Yeah.
Right, which is crap. It gapped down large. He picked it up basically at the bottom, dude. What was the bottom? 71?
62.
This guy
And you
got
bought
it
it
at the
at-
bottom.
And it's funny. It's funny because a lot of
bit of
times,
luck.
Carl will look over at Greg when he says buy or sell, and he'll say, "Show me the buy."
I
Show
don't
me
believe
it.
him. I don't believe him.
And here we are on live YouTube and
Nobody's that
Facebook.
good.
And
How
he
dare
just
you now.
bought the bottom
He did.
live.
Listen,
Yeah,
I'll
He's
be
up
honest
to
with you.
grand
You're-
in less
You know
than
who's
an hour.
really good at it is where they at though.
Yeah, he's
in our
really
chat
good.
room.
Yeah,
He's
shout
messed
out
up.
Chris, stud at the TA.
He's at brunch right now, and I'm like, dude, get over your brunch.
You just missed $1,000 plus in an hour. If we could all make if we all can have a $1,000 an hour, that'd be fantastic.
What was your highlight at PDAC? We only have a couple minutes here. What was your highlight?
The after party events. I really liked.
One particular thing?
You already asked that, and if you'd like to scroll back to the beginning of this 1.5 hour video, you'll see that answer. But more specifically, just in general, I just like talking to all the industry specialists and asking what, off the
networking.
record,
That's what you like.
do you think of the network? What's going on? It's always good. It's always good. The dude on the right needs to chill. Relax, bro. Get laid. This is what 10 Soul's saying. And that's towards me. And if you knew me any better, I don't relax, and it is time.
He's chirping you?
Oh, yeah.
He's chirping you. Don't talk to my boy like that, okay?
Whoa. Get the boxing fists up.
We might not like each other on here. And we might not like each other, but he's still my boy.
You don't necessarily always have to like someone to respect them.
It's true. I respect Brandon.
I respect Carl.
And you do need to get
Do
laid.
I like him or not? And he does need to get laid. Been a couple of minutes. But yeah, no, Pete.
How are we leaving it off? I say we leave it right there.
Yeah, just stop.
You want to give your phone number?
Yeah.
Sorry?
You want to give your phone number?
You can also find him on,
not particularly.
on
Give
our
your phone
Facebook
number.
group.
Yeah.
You know.
Brandon's a good guy. He's a lot of
Media.
fun.
Yeah.
He really is a lot of fun.
I call people out chirping me on YouTube.
Oh, it's great.
No, I'm sure he's 10 Souls. I'm sure you're a fantastic person.
There was a comment I read one time. Oh, there was my hammy again. I can't bend my leg, man. And someone was like, I can't stand watching this guy with his passive aggressive comments towards Brandon.
Yeah.
I read it. I was at the gym. I'm like, you don't watch that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's one of those. We're not your typical people who do financial news and talk about your different
We're not
guests.
journalists.
And we're not trying to be your typical people. I'm wearing a random blue sweater and a red shirt. Don't have a tie on. Don't have a suit on. Still smarter than most people
Dude,
on TV.
I actually, dressed up a little bit today. But we're active participants in the market, and we're not journalists, and we're just here shooting the poo, and bring some guests on, figure it out.
That's it.
Someone's saying I don't think they fired them. If we said that they fired,
resigned.
It was resignation. If the word fire came out at that month, that's not correct. I don't think we did. But just in case, yeah, it was a resignation.
Thanks.
It was.
Well, anyways,
both
our friend
parties
here bought the
were-
bottom today, and he's up, and that's how we should leave it.
Very nice, very nice. So, laptop down. I can't see anything anymore, so that means we're done. And I hope everyone enjoys. Tune in next week. We will see you another time. Carl, are you going to finish this off, or was that already done?
You know what? You did a great job, dude. Yes. You can pour this coffee on your face if you want.
Odd, won't. See you next week.
Bye.
See ya.